Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming $5,000 Modern Invitational Qualifier here in sunny Caldwell, Ohio. I'm Todd Tandy Anderson, joined by Corey Baumeister. Say hey, Corey.
Hey, hey.
I almost said Ross Merriam, and I had to stop myself.
Well, that's not me, so.
That's what you do when you have the same guy in the booth with you for 3 years.
Yeah, that's
Some
fair.
other guy comes up here and tries to take his job.
That's fair. That's fair. I clearly did it. I'm right here where he's not here, so job taken.
He's right there. But we have 8 players left in the field, and they are battling for their fair share of $5,000 cash and prizes. We have prize wall tickets on the line. We got money on the line, qualifications on the line. The top 2 finishers from today's event will be qualified not only for the regional championship coming up that's hosted by Star City Games, but also the Apex Invitational at the end of the year, the whole reason why we're doing this.
Yeah.
We are going to be following throughout this top 8 yesterday's winner, and to see if he can go back-to-back. That's Alan Miller playing Izzet Prowess. We actually watched him win round number 1. His opponent in this round is going to be Garrett Widman on Domain Zoo. We'll go over this match in detail in just a second, but before we get to that, let's actually take a look at our whole bracket and break down what the matchups are going to be looking like here in our top 8. All right, so we are going to be starting with that 4-5 match, Miller versus Widman, and then the winner of that will play the winner of Sims versus Hafner. That's going to be Eldrazi Ramp on Boros Energy. Jonah Littman, longtime mainstay here at the Apex Series, doing very well with Mono Blue Belcher, thanks to Ross Merriam's sideboard guide. We've been talking to him all day. He's got his work cut out for him.
Maybe the nicest guy I've ever met as well. I absolutely love Jonah. He's a nice guy.
Yeah,
nice
it's like you talk to him, and it's like you say something that's kind of like, you know, I don't want to say aggressive, but just like kind of jokingly or whatever, and he's just like, okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, he's extremely nice, a very kind person. He's going to be battling against TJ Radizak, one of the monsters here on the Apex Series, playing a newcomer, Kethis Combo. I'm very interested to see how that matchup plays out. And then on our last match, it's going to be not near the cameras. That's Brendan Lane on Esfrigorios, continuing his dominance here on the Apex Series, and he's going to be battling against Riley Baker on Gruul Brood Scale. So 8 different archetypes in top 8. Pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, nothing gets better than that. You know, just seeing a very diverse format. Always a ton of fun to watch, and a lot of those matchups, some of them are pretty close. Some do look a little lopsided. The number 1 seed up against Boros when you got a lot of Kozilek's returns. That one could be a little brutal, as well as that combo match there for the 3-6. Gotta give that one to Belcher being on the play. But yeah, that's why we play the games. See who wins.
That's true. That's true. So we're going to be watching Miller versus Widman, Izzet versus Domain Zoo. Why don't you give me a breakdown of these two decks? How do you think they're going to be facing off against each other, and who's going to win?
Yeah, so Garrett for the start, if Garrett has the draw, so everything is really on Garrett here. If you have the Leyline Scion combo, near impossible to beat from the Prowess decks. But if you play some of the more, you know, fair magic outside of that, it is very close. But if we do see Leyline Scion, it's not going to be very close.
Yeah, Leyline Scion is particularly strong at beating interactive decks.
Yeah.
Decks that also have a lot of ground pound creatures, or creatures just in general. So yeah, it'll be Leyline, Draco, or maybe not.
Exactly. And on the other side of that, if, you know, Garrett does stumble at all, Alan Miller's deck produces a ton of damage really quickly. And Alan, you know, the couple times we've seen him on camera playing this deck, it's made it look really good. You know, he definitely knows how to play this deck, and I was really impressed earlier.
Yeah, and his opponent, the champion from yesterday, Alan Miller, who was playing Mono Red yesterday, going to be on Izzet Prowess with 4 copies of Corey Steelcutter. And the deck looks great. We saw Violent Urge be particularly powerful in combination with the Prowess triggers and the mutagenic growth, and we'll see if he's able to maybe steal a game with something like that.
Good old Splinter Twin right there.
All right, well, the players are ready in the feature match area, so let's head on down for the quarterfinals. All right, Miller, your champion from yesterday in the Adidas hat on your left. His opponent, Widman, on the right, playing Domain Zoo with that red shirt. We're going to be underway here, and I believe Miller was the 4 seed, so Miller gets to choose the play. Starting off here with a quick fetch, and go digging for land.
And the most important thing was the pregame action. No ley lines, so we're just playing a good old fair game, which I would assume favors Alan here.
Okay, here is, I believe, a Steam Vents for Miller. Going to go down to 17. See what one drop he's got to play. Looks like we maybe took a mulligan as well. Doesn't have too many cards in hand, but here's Dragon Race Channeler.
But looks solid still. Had a follow-up Corey Steelcutter as well as some card advantage. I see a mutagenic growth and a preordained. So yeah, looks like a mulligan to 6, but a very strong 6.
All right, Widman going to play here. Flooded Strand and pass the turn, so no one drop. Can fetch one of those Surveil lands or Triomes. But Miller here going to go ahead and quickly fetch land number 2, so Corey Steel likely coming down.
Yeah, and big deal here. Garrett has 4 Stubborn Denials, so if that's the card of choice, it looks excellent. If you can just nab that one without having a creature to supercharge your draw, which is also risky to play this one in general instead of just playing it, you know, on turn 3 when you're going to trigger it anyways.
All right, well, Corey Steelcutter seems to have resolved, and so now Miller going to go for a mutagenic growth that's going to buff, get another Surveil, and create a Monk token with haste off the Corey Steelcutter. So great opener for Miller, and no responses from Woodman as of yet.
Big game there. Big game to make this DRC gigantic. And if Garrett only had a Lightning Bolt as a piece of interaction, you probably would have wanted to kill that DRC immediately. So really great start for Allen, and Garrett likely no interaction from this point.
Yeah, I don't think that we quite have Delirium just yet for the Dragon Race Channeler. I count Artifact, Instant, and Land.
And Creature. That's a DRC above the cutter. It looks like it. Could be a Bolt, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of alternate art things running around.
Yeah, especially in this deck.
Yeah.
Could be a Swift Spear. Who knows?
Woodman going to fetch a Lush Portico on the instep and Surveil 1 with the green-white Surveil land. And it looks like we dealt 5 damage that turn, so it looks like Delirium is not on just yet. So that's maybe a Lightning Bolt, maybe a Lava Dart. This Lava Dart, that could be hot.
Should be at 14 at least then, because that was 5 damage alone.
So, yes, and then we had a fetch, so it should be down to 14.
Yep.
We'll get our spotter to check on life totals here in just a moment.
Yeah, doesn't matter if there's Delirium or not. No matter what, that can't be the right life total.
I agree with that.
All right, good old preordain. Get it started.
All right, so that should be putting him from 14 down to 13. Can we please go talk to the spotter and make sure that they have the right life totals? Because we have 2 fetches and a 5-point attack. Yeah. So it should be 13 for Woodman.
See if it's correct, I would assume, but...
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we got the life
We
totals.
did it!
Yeah, we saved the day. Thanks, Corey.
Yes.
So preordained for Miller, I believe this is going to be enough to give Delirium now, thanks to the sorcery going to the graveyard. We're going to leave the Surveil on top. Looking at the top 2, we're going to go 1 bottom, 1 top.
Okay, and then we got a gigantic attack already, as long as we can piece together 1 more spell. And that'll do it. And with just Garrett going so slow here to this, the only real hope when you don't have Leyline, Scion of Draco, any piece of interaction, is Flage. Turn 4 Flage, start killing a creature, gain some life, but it just might be too late. There could even be a world where Allen wins right now.
Yeah, big attack coming. This is 3 from the Darcy. 2 Prowess triggers. Woodman going to fire off a Leyline Binding. Let's see what he wants to target.
Okay, pretty solid. Would have also been a little tempting for Garrett to take out a Corey Steelcutter proactively there before the ability to get a Monk into play, but still reasonable.
Okay. Go back Woodman's way. At 8 now. Here's Arena of Glory.
Okay, that'll especially even this game out if we can get to next turn with a couple more cards in the yard.
There's Territorial Kavu, and we know that that one allows you to discard when it attacks too, which is nice, so that could help fuel that Flage from the grave. But let's see if he makes it to that next turn, because here comes Expressive Iteration. We are 1 spell away from another Corey Steel. We get 2 Prowess triggers here.
Ooh, the Stubborn Denial.
Yeah, got him.
Big game.
Counter that.
Okay. That's huge, because now you can't really attack into these Kavus. I think it's 2 lands in hand, because there was a Sacred Foundry as well, so if that's the case, all of a sudden a game that looked pretty out of reach for Garrett looks really good. Even if Garrett just goes attack, discard, fetch land, sack, flage, and doesn't have a hasty flage, it still looks amazing.
Okay, let's see if... I think Miller does have that dart in the grave, so we could go dart face down to 7, create another monk, and then we have 1 blocker for a monk, and then 2 get through, put him down to like 3 life or so.
Okay.
Looks like that's what we're going to lean toward.
Yeah, Alan really putting us to the test with 5 different alternate arts of different cards in his deck.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to give him some leeway, because... I think they're all from the same secret lair.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I think it's like Dart, Mishra's Bauble, Darcy. It was just like the mono red Prowess guy.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, here comes a big attack.
The Ryan Overturf secret lair.
Yeah. All right, one of the monks get eaten by the Territorial Kavu, and now we're going to go back to Widman. And if we can get this Flage back from the graveyard this turn, we'll be cooking.
That was 1 mutagenic growth away, or literally any spell away from winning there from Alan with that dart in the yard. So only 2 lands from Alan in hand, but no land there from Garrett. Mm-hmm. You know, Garrett's taking a calculated no risk here, and I don't know if it's correct or not, but the other option you have is something like attack with the Kavu, discard a Ragavan, and then if you have fetch land, then Flage can kind of pop off, but you probably have to have a certain fetch land that gets one of your basics. So
yeah, it'd be the plains actually, because he already has 2 red only sources in play for the Flage.
Yeah, exactly. So it would just have to be a white source. So all right, I like it.
We picked up looks like a lightning bolt, but we're just gonna get that hit with a stubborn denial. We'll see if Miller has something else to play to trigger the Quarry Steel Cutter, but I don't think he does.
That's not a dart, right?
The one he just played is
okay.
lightning bolt.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been a lot better for Alan if it was a dart.
Would have got a couple more triggers.
So I guess, yeah, one thing you can do here is sack the Tarn. If you surveil a dart to your yard, you get to win the game.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's going to do here. Good
yeah, because your window's really closing at this point. The fact that Garrett does need to find a white fetch land to turn this on, you know, makes it still not an easy thing to do, but white fetch land locks up game number 1 for Garrett for sure.
All right, Surveil coming off the Thundering Falls. If it's a dart, we got too many tokens coming, more than likely.
Yep. Yeah, dart Ragavan, get another monk. It would be just enough.
Yeah, 3 2-power attackers, 1 blocker, and only 1 potential removal spell with 1 mana.
It could be a dart. No one knows.
That, I think, it's either a dart. So that's a dart that's exiled right there.
Yeah.
So the one he just flipped over, I think, is a Dragon Rage Channeler.
Looks like a Swift Spear.
Swift Spear.
Yeah, there's just not enough text on it for it to be a Dragon Rage Channeler.
That's true. Yeah, Ragavan coming in. I think I block.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. Otherwise, Flage comes in.
Block, brother.
Yeah, otherwise, Flage comes and you get Lightning Helixed.
Well, I guess there's not enough in the graveyard at this exact second.
Yep, that's true. You had to attack with the... Okay, that doesn't solve the problem yet, though. Oof, I didn't love that. If you're going to be able to... Okay, I guess that's fair, because if Garrett did attack with the Kavu as well and the Ragavan gets chumped, then all of a sudden you could just win the game, but wow, is there another Stubborn Denial? Oof, duh.
Okay, and now Flage is going to come back from the graveyard and is going to have haste and threaten to take over this game. Miller just barely shy of getting the job done, but now it looks like Widman on the comeback train.
Needed all 3 Stubborn Denials to make it work, and now Flage is going to do what it does best, clean up this game.
All right, so thanks to the Mimic Treasure token from our good friends at Once Upon a Galaxy, Widman's going to crack that 4 white, and then we're going to use the Arena of Glory to give that Flage haste, and, well, that's a GG.
It's GG in so many matchups, and this one is no exception, that's for sure. And this feels brutal because this felt like the game Alan really had to win. You know, this was a game Garrett mulliganed down to 6 as well, and just didn't have Leyline, didn't have the Scion of Draco. Honestly, didn't even have that much early interaction. It felt like this was a game Alan could have easily won, but it just couldn't quite get enough damage.
Yeah. And now we're going to go all the way up to 8 and probably just attack for lethal here because we get to kill the other blocker with Flage, and this looks like 13 to me.
Yep, looks good. Maybe you think about flaging upstairs in case this creature were to die, but any way that the monk would die in response would have already killed Garrett,
Yeah,
so
you would have lost last.
You really don't have to play around anything at this point.
Okay, so we're going to send him down to 8. No, we're going to target the token. Okay, there we go. GG.
Not technically how that's supposed to be resolved, but not the biggest deal, as you do have to choose a target from Flage and then draw a discard. You don't get that information beforehand.
I want you to try to explain why to someone who's been playing Magic for less than a year.
Yeah.
And it'll just make them really mad.
You know, it is a not really intuitive aspect, but yeah, you do fully have to target and then do your rummaging.
All right, so Widman takes game number 1 with Domain Zoo, and Alan Miller, our champion from yesterday, is going to need some help. Corey, his sideboard, you're taking a look at it right now. What do you think he's going to be bringing in to help out against this Domain deck?
I think you have to do anything that interacts with the Leyline Scion of Draco plan. So there's Into the Floodmaw, even though it doesn't look amazing outside of bouncing the very tricky permanents. Wear, Tear, Unholy Heat, they deal with some of the tricky ones. Outside of that, that is really all I'm interested in.
All right, on the other side of the table, Widman's Domain Zoo deck probably has quite a few tools for interacting with Izzet Prowess. What do you think is going to be coming in on that side?
For this, we have Pyroclasm, looks great there. A couple Wrath of the Skies if you want to play a little bit more of the controlling role. You can, I would say bring in Wear Tear, but it is fully just Tear. So if you're in the market of just Shatter for Corey Steelcutter, you can do that. Looks pretty weak to me. So yeah, really just Pyroclasm and Wrath of the Skies.
All right, as these players shuffle up here for game number 2, I'd like to take this time to say thank you to the sponsors of ApexCon and this weekend's festivities. We are sponsored by Once Upon a Galaxy. This auto battler from the great minds LSV, Matt Nass, and many other old school Magic players. Once Upon a Galaxy is an auto battler that takes you through space and other adventures. It's free to play. You can check it out in your app store today.
Everyone's going to space. We're going to space for the next Magic set. They're going to space. Gotta love it.
He's going to space with Starlink.
There we go. I guess.
Bezos going to space for fun. They're going to mine the moon. Do you see that?
I did not.
Yeah.
No.
So we both watched For All Mankind. Correct?
Yes, phenomenal show.
Now in that show, they started mining helium-3 out of the moon, and they used that to fuel to get to Mars. Easily.
Yep.
And now they are really going to do that.
Wow.
In real life.
I mean, hey, you see it on the movie? That's got to be how it works.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do? Big shout out to SpiceRack.gg. SpiceRack is a wonderful piece of tournament software we've been partnering with for about a year now. And it's great for those looking for tournaments to play, but it's also a wonderful piece of tournament software for those looking to run events yourself. So check out SpiceRack.gg today. Players look like they're about done with their mulligans. So let's head on back down to the feature match area and see if we're ready to start.
Our big game. See if Alan can run back. Ooh, probably not with that hand. That is a lot of lands, it looks like.
4 land, Unholy Heat, and some Junkers.
4 land in the Prowess deck is just completely flooded. I feel like you want to have 2 at the very most, and you'll accept 3.
Now, last game, Widman had no answer for like a turn 2 Corey Steelcutter, which I thought was pretty interesting because we were talking about Stubborn Denial potentially coming up big there. But, didn't have it then, but drew 3 more of the next like 8 turns or so and was able to just shut the door.
Yeah, no kidding.
Very interesting.
That was very interesting. I'm curious if maybe there was an answer, but didn't really expect maybe the free spell to be cast and kind of pushing ahead there. Because the fact that you had 3 Stubborn Denial, you either didn't have an answer and then started drawing every single draw step was a Stubborn Denial, or you just didn't prioritize dealing with it. And, both acceptable for sure.
All right, Miller here. This hand looks like it's a bit better. Likely going to keep this. We'll see if he's ready to go.
Yeah, it looks a lot better. We got a DRC, a mutagenic growth, EI, a couple lands, and a preordained. So really all you want, but that's the type of hand where these prowess decks sometimes are a little vulnerable. If your opponent just has a lightning bolt for your only threat here, all of a sudden the prowess deck looks a lot less exciting.
All right, turn 1 preordained. Going to be digging for some pressure. Top 2. No idea what they are.
Could be anything.
Look like anime.
Yep.
And I like anime.
Yeah. Inuyasha and Goku to the bottom.
I used to love those old Adult Swim bumpers. Just Inuyasha and Kagome hollering back at each other.
I did too, I'm not going to lie.
All right, just a pass on turn 1 for Widman. His deck really starts to get off the ground on 2 mana, but does have some tricky stuff at 1, including Lightning Bolt, Seven Denial. No play for Miller on turn number 2, though. If you're Widman, you got to be breathing a sigh of relief. There's not a Corey Steel Cutter running down your back.
Yeah, you got to be happy about that. It might also lead me to believe that it wasn't a DRC in the back. Otherwise, that feels like a decent spot to get a threat on the battlefield, especially with Expressive Iteration in your hand, where that's almost always a 3-drop. You want to play that next turn, and you have the ability to play a land, but I'll just stop calling out cards from Alan, as they're all mysteries.
Yeah, we'll just do our best.
Yeah.
We're doing our best. Widman keeps the card on top from the Lush Portico, plays Misty Rainforest, and passes turn. Maybe playing this a little bit slow, waiting for Miller to deploy a threat before he starts finding some answers.
And that is the nice thing about this Domain Zoo deck. There's cards like Tribal Flames in the main where I'm pretty certain that there's 4 Tribal Flames in the sideboard after game 1. As
in most matchups.
In a decent amount of matchups, yeah, whenever you don't need the speed, you get rid of those for a lot more controlling elements, and then matchups like Combo, where you gotta close the door, Tribal Flames is excellent. So I do like Garrett's deck and configuration quite a bit.
Yeah, game 1's versus game 2 and 3 in Tournament Magic is always a bit tricky. You want to make sure that, like, your game 1, you don't have very many dead cards, but often that means playing cards that are one-dimensional, but like a little, I guess not one-dimensional. They're just like not that efficient, but they are multi-dimensional.
Yeah, or just proactive. Being proactive game 1 is always a good plan, and then games tend to slow down and get a little more reactive in the post-board game. So,
well, here's Expressive Iteration from Miller. We're gonna put a card off to the side. I think that's a Mishra's Bauble. Don't quote me on it.
Yeah,
looks red to me.
It just got cast for 0, so I'm with you.
All right, see if Miller has a land to play.
Ooh, might not.
Gonna take a peek at Widman's top of deck.
And I think that does look like a land up front there, but Alan's fooled me before.
All right, so we're gonna play a tapped land here, and then we're gonna draw from the Mishra's Bauble. Widman going to fetch with Misty Rainforest on the instep. He could get a couple different lands to unlock his colors. Looks like we're going to go for Steam Vents.
Yeah, not even a Surveil land or a Triumph. And that's the thing. Sometimes you have to break up kind of the traditional play patterns of, oh, I get to Surveil at end step. I didn't have to use my mana when it comes to Domain Zoo without the, easy mode of Leyline.
All right, Widman here. Turn 3. Shields are down. Miller, no counterspell or anything at the ready. Let's see if he wants to get Sign of Draco down. Plays the new version of Crumbling Necropolis, Xander's Lounge.
And only one duel, or only one Triumph in this list, it looks like. Usually you see the Abzan one and then Steam Vents to assemble your domain.
Corey Steel Cutter is the first cast for Miller on turn number 4. And it looks like we're going to follow that up with Mishra's Bauble and trigger this here Corey Steel Cutter and get a Monk.
Okay, the pressure's a little late from Alan, but it's here, and Garrett's not doing a ton either, so still looking decent.
Take a look at Garrett's top. Attack for 2. Now, Widman going to go ahead and play this Leyline Binding, and we can just knock off this Corey Steel Cutter so that it won't be a problem in the future, and it also shrinks the Monk by 1/1.
Yep, I like that. Not a lot of ways for Alan to actually deal with enchantments. We do splash white, but there is only one wear tear, leaning on Prismatic Ending to deal with different hate cards instead. And Leyline Binding, not the easiest to Prismatic Ending, I'll tell you that.
So Woodman gonna go back his way. His turn 4. Not facing down too much pressure, but probably needs to try to get a creature onto the battlefield sooner rather than later. We're gonna shock in Temple Garden down to 15. Still at a pretty high life total.
Yeah, even if Garrett just, till the end of time, is just removal, flage, that kind of plan is good enough against Izzet Prowess.
Here's a Sign of Draco and another Sign of Draco. Let's get Sign of Draco on the screen. This is a 12 mana 4/4 flyer, but really it's a 2 mana 4/4 flyer. Thanks to fetch lands, triomes, shock lands, and the like. We're able to essentially pay 2 mana for this 4/4 that grants a lot of ability to other creatures. The trick is that with the Leyline of the Guild Pact on the battlefield, all of your creatures have all of those abilities, including Hexproof and Lifelink.
Yeah, this was the best deck in Modern for a very long time when we had Violent Urge. I believe that was the instant speed cascade.
Violent Outburst.
Violent Outburst, yep. Just get some Rhinos going. That deck was incredibly powerful before that card got banned.
We have Dragon Rage Channeler here as the follow-up from Miller, and we're going to cast it, and then we're going to plot a Slick Shot Show Off. And since we don't have the Core Steel Cutter in place, and no reason to just hard cast the Slick Shot here.
Oh, and I think that is a Prismatic Ending in hand with 3 permanents that could not be farther out of reach. So, yeah, Alan does not have the exact same body language he had when he was casting Magebane Lizards all day yesterday. This does not look very good for Alan's chances to repeat.
Woodman here in the tank. Land number 5. Let's see what he's got up his sleeve.
Yeah, as long as Garrett's hand is reasonable at all, you got to think this is going exactly the way he wanted. There wasn't anything attacking Garrett until turn 4. And in this matchup, that's just a little too tough.
So a Sign of Draco comes across, and I think Miller has Delirium. Could have potentially blocked plus mutagenic growth, but unwilling or doesn't have it. But I think just
I think he does have it, but it is just begging to get 2 for 1.
All right, Woodman post-combat. We're going to play Phantom Neshoba. This is going to be a 5/3, and this one does have trample. And I think maybe this is the one we were confusing earlier with Territorial Kavu, because they're both 2-cost domain large.
It actually has trample 3 times over now. That's what I was always thinking. The classic Territorial Kavu always has trample when it's attacking me because it's always paired with a Sign of Draco.
All right. In a turn, we're going to crack Fire Islet. We do have a lot of mana up, and he also tapped that Steam Vents like he had a Lightning Bolt or something similar, so I wouldn't be surprised if Woodman just changed his mind. I don't think that's really a bluff.
Yeah, or Ragavan and wanted to hold it until it was actually relevant.
Maybe dashable.
Yeah. So I could see either or, but I'm totally with you. I think players need to pick up on that kind of stuff because, well, when you're playing against someone, they bleed information constantly. And if you're paying attention, you can, really piece together what they have in hand and then play around it accordingly.
Miller going to start by casting Slick Shot Show Off, and then follows up with another Slick Shot Show Off.
Okay. I mean, this is definitely the way to get something going. If anything can do it, it's a couple of show-offs when Garrett tapped and attacked with one of the Scions, which I would have done as well, for what it's worth.
Okay, so we surveil with the bauble and put a land into the graveyard.
Bauble now to get some information.
Looks like a white card, maybe Leyline Binding.
That's what I got as well.
All right, Slick Shot's coming in. Darcy coming in. Monk also coming in. Has a Prowess trigger on it, so this mutagenic growth will allow it to trade for Neshoba Brawler, if that's the one that comes in. All right, so right now it's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. So it's 11 with no blocks.
Yeah, and looks like I don't think any of Alan's lands produce white, so didn't have the option to Prismatic Ending. And I saw Mutagenic Growth, and then a card that could be anything. Could be Lava Dart, could be Lightning Bolt, but looked like there was one other piece of instant speed interaction here from Alan.
So Neshoba going to block the Monk. 2 Slick Shots coming in unfettered. Miller going to play, looks like a Lightning Bolt.
That looks like a bolt, yep.
And so that's going to put him to 12, and right now these 2 Slick Shots are 5s.
I mean, this is just lethal right now. Yeah, never count out Prowess. Prowess can just get you dead.
Yeah, so this is going to be 3 non-creature spells cast for Slick Shot, so they're each going to be a 7. The Mutagen is going to make it 14, 16, and no response from Widman, and that's going to be game over.
That is pretty impressive. I figured Garrett had any piece of interaction here, but just didn't. And Alan's able to take it down. That was quite surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Izzet Prowess deck, you know, it's really known for these like out of nowhere kills, thanks to like Monastery Swiftspear, the hastiness of it. But
yeah,
now even with Corey Steel Cutter entering into the mix, Slickshot Show Off, we just have so many of these haste creatures that allow for burst damage.
Oh yeah, absolutely explosive. Double Show Off can get a lot done. So impressive win there.
Yeah, but that's only game number 2, and we got a deciding game coming up here. And Widman, with that Domain Zoo, is going to be on the play. And we haven't seen Leyline of the Guild.
We haven't seen the Leyline yet.
Leyline Scion's coming, and it's bad news for Miller if it shows up.
It's real bad. You think about those kind of draws, and you're like, yeah, Scion has First Strike, Lifelink, and Vigilance. That's really enough. You know, that's already a devastating combination.
All right, well, we do have one result from our off-camera match for those of you at home. Any Brendan Lane fans in chat, Brendan Lane defeated by Riley Baker. So that's Gruul Root Scale moving into the top 4.
Oof, an upset.
A big upset because Brendan Lane is like one of our Apex Predators here.
Yeah.
He's a great player.
Yeah, no, he was playing Mono White yesterday and looked... You can just tell by the way people play their spells, the confidence the crispiness. That's a perfect word for it.
Yeah. We used to always be able to tell when we were... playing like PTQs back in like the 2000s. Or
yeah.
Someone was like tapping their lands sharply. Like if they kept their battlefield clean, you did not want to play against that person.
100%.
You want to play against the person who's like drawing their card before they untap.
Yes.
Their creatures never untap. Like their lands untap, but their creatures never untap.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just, back in those days, before, Arena and Magic Online was so readily available, players have just gotten a lot better. The baseline bottom level style competitive player is just so much better these days.
I think a lot of it has to do with the information websites.
Yes.
Like, we have tons of information at our disposal at all times about what decks are what percentage of the metagame. And so it allows players to be much more easily informed and make those better decisions. It's hard nowadays. It's hard to play against a bad deck.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see the win rates of something. We're like, do I want to play a 39% win rate control deck? I guess I shouldn't.
Are you Eli Cassis?
Yeah.
All right, well, Widman going to be taking a mulligan. I believe this is the second mulligan, but I'm not 100% because we were slightly distracted.
I think just the first, but I could be wrong.
But Widman will be on the play here for this deciding game. So, I think they're both taking the mulligan, and Widman was just taking a little while to decide. That's what got me. So
reasonable. Looks like Alan down to 6, but happy with this one.
Now our top 8 players all receive some Ultimate Guard swag. All of our 5th through 8th competitors, if they get knocked out, they'll get a consolation prize of a pack of Cortex sleeves. And all of our top 4 players will each get a Boulder deck box. We'll talk about those prizes a little bit later. Here we have game 3 of our first quarterfinals. Widman looks like he's going to keep this hand. Has to put 2 back.
You're right, though. It is 2.
On 5 cards and on the play. Let's see what he's got.
Okay.
Leyline.
I mean, if you mulligan to 5, I'm keeping Leyline, Double Land, Scion of Draco, and I'm cooking. So.
And a ham sandwich.
And a ham sandwich. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Could be any other card, and I'd be happy.
Give me a Mons Goblin Raiders. All right. Steam Vents, the play for Widman. Miller matches it with Arid Mesa. second land. Here's
Ooh.
Territorial Kavu. We don't have green mana on the lands, but we do have green mana from the ley line of the Guild Pact. And we also have a 5/5.
Still great, but, you know, Scion is definitely what you want to play. But I think there is some argument if you do have Scion to just playing it as your second spell and then attacking for a little bit extra damage here. So Garrett could still have it. You know, if you're playing against a Thoughtseize deck, something like that, where you're at risk of losing your Scion, you're just going to jam it.
Right.
But there is no risk for that of any counter spells or hand disruption.
All right, well, the ley line has already allowed Woodman to fix the colored mana, so it's not quite a dud just yet. We'll see if he's able to really get the lock going with the top deck to Sign of Draco soon. Miller going to surveil it with Thundering Falls on the end step. Take a look at the top card.
And it's just tough to get through a 5/5 as well. You can, of course, aim 2 removal spells at it, and that's totally reasonable and might be what Alan has to do. But at first glance, from the cards that I can tell what they are from Alan's deck, doesn't look like there's a lot of threats. Just a lot of blue cards.
There's a Core Steel Cutter for Miller. We're going to shock to 17, but no follow-up play means no pressure.
All right, here's the big moment. If it's there, this game is pretty much all but done, even on a mulligan.
So Kavu's going to draw a card here as well after discarding a Lightning Bolt. Looking for another threat is Garrett Woodman to try to close the door before Corey still goes crazy.
Yeah, and no Scion so far.
That's a good pickup, though. Leyline Binding going to take care of Corey Steele, and Alan Miller's potential defense or pressure is gone.
Yeah, and you could have a Stubborn Denial, could have another Leyline Binding. All would be fantastic from Garrett. So even if we don't have the Blade, the Scion of Draco, this is still looking pretty solid. And that's just so many blue cards. And not a lot of time to cast them.
Expressive Iteration, the cast here. We have how many Unholy Heats in the 75?
Just one in the board.
And doesn't even have Delirium yet, so pretty far away from being able to take care of this Kavu as of yet.
Yep, definitely not trivial, that's for sure.
Finds a land, so we do get the full Expressive Iteration. What Setter used to call those perfect brainstorms. This is the perfect Expressive Iteration.
Yes, absolutely. You always knew your tournament was going to go well if you just Expressive Iteration on 3 without having a land and you hit your third land off of it. Yeah. Versus, oh, you have 3 1-drops and you're like, all right, I'm just going to drop. I'm going to head on out.
My favorite was watching you cast Expressive Iteration on turn 2 sometimes.
Yes.
And understanding that you were not having that mana later, and that if you found Bobble, it was like, GG.
Oh, yeah.
And you hit it one time, and we were watching on coverage, and it felt so...
Oh, absolutely. You can't get lucky if you don't gamble, you know?
All right, here's a big old Kavu.
Oh, not discarding that one. Take 10.
Tribal Flames never look better. Big Kavu swinging in.
Yeah, I guess those Tribal Flames didn't go straight to the sideboard like I thought, but, you know, looked pretty solid there, and that was all without the Scion of Draco shenanigans here. Garrett's still getting it done.
Yeah, it turns out a turn 2 5/5 is pretty good against the red deck.
Yeah, when you have perfect rainbow mana base, definitely helps out. That was on a mulligan to 5 as well, so...